this is it. It's time for Talkies.
Talkies time.
It's Talkies time.
Yes, and this is a special Talkies because we are embarking on an adventure unlike any we have ever embarked upon before. This is the first episode of Kubrick Con.
Kubrick Con? It's a convention?
Yeah.
We're holding a convention?
No.
Kubrick binge.
No, I'm not liking
It's
this.
a deep dive. We're doing a deep dive on
you.
Kubrick filmography. We're going to be reviewing Kubrick's filmography in reverse release order.
Just because we started that
Just
way.
because we happen to start with Eyes Wide Shut.
That means we're starting with Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, and
Eyes
so
Wide Shut.
for the consecutive few weeks, we're going to be covering Kubrick movies.
Kubrick.
Couple of kids covering Kubrick.
Oh, yeah.
I like alliteration. That's what I'm trying to do. The Kubrick Con.
Kenny likes Kubrick.
Stanley Showcase.
No.
Anyway, Eyes Wide Shut. That's where we begin.
That's true.
Let's dive in.
So here we are. Stanley Kubrick, am I right? Damn.
So what? Should we begin with our hot takes?
I guess so.
Oh, all right. Is that just a I liked it, didn't like it thing?
Right?
Okay, you're
Yeah.
first.
May 1st.
Big
1st.
surprise. Here
May
comes a big
1st.
surprise.
Okay. I have a lot to say about this movie because for a very long time, I considered it my favorite movie of all time.
Wait. Not anymore?
I don't have a favorite movie anymore. I've gone that route. Yeah.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah, pretty much like usually when a movie is my favorite movie, what that means for me is it's a movie that I'm like fixated on. Like I can't get it out of my head and I'm watching it over and over and over again. And so Eyes Wide Shut like struck some chord with me that like really made me fall in love with
Women, because there are a lot
with
of
sex and orgies and cults and the idea of cheating. Like I love the idea of cheating.
Well, for all
that's a new clip.
Like how do I talk about how do I say that I love this movie? I love rewatching it all the time without seeming like I'm some crazy.
First you're pro racist and now you're
oh my god, dude! I'm like talking about race. I'm off the deep end here, dude.
jeez. Oh
Wow.
I'm gonna try and hone it in. I love this movie because it's surreal. I absolutely love surrealism, and I think Stanley Kubrick is my favorite director, along with David Lynch. So,
Boom.
Kubrick taking on a surreal film is basically like heaven for me. Like I adore that vibe that he created with this movie.
Dig.
Wow. Oh, well, it's my turn.
It's your turn.
I love this movie. Absolutely adore this film. I think he. Every time I watch it, I learn something new about intensity. He's able to make these just very intense moments out of something that on face value doesn't seem that intense.
Yes.
And that's what I think is so impressive about this film.
That's weird.
The surrealism of it is bonkers. And both times I watch it, I felt like I fell asleep and dreamed a movie. Both, it's so dreamy. Like if any moment there was some kind of reveal that this whole movie wasn't real, it just would have felt like it made sense. But I do have some qualms to dive into once just hot take time. So I'm going to put this on shelf for now. We'll get back to that. You go.
My turn. I very, very, very much like the movie. This is my first time watching it.
Really?
Yeah, first time. I've seen the oneer before, just because I think it's been posted on social media. Just
The one going around the outside of the circle?
no,
The POV cult sequence.
yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
No.
There's actually a few oneers.
Okay,
in
yeah,
Do
this
you mean
movie.
going through the orgy stuff?
Doing through the orgy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because it was so heavily censored.
Yeah, all the CGI people.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why I had seen that before.
One or two of those is like almost obnoxious.
It is
Yeah.
very obnoxious. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I know about this movie, was that it was about a mask and there was some sort of orgy thing, and that's about it. So then I watched it. I didn't even know Tom Cruise was in it.
Damn.
And as with most Kubrick, I can sense a really, really specific direction here, and I can sense a really, really interesting theme, but it's really hard to dig into when I'm just watching for one time, right? I feel like I need to watch this at least 3 more times to really understand what's happening here.
That's what made me fall in love with the movie, because it wasn't straight away for me. Like, I liked the movie when I saw it, but like something about it kept coming. Like, I had to keep going back to it, and the more I watched it, the more I was like, damn, this movie's amazing.
It's
I love this
challenging movie. I think that's it. Like you can't really snooze your way through it, even though it feels like you're dreaming.
Yeah,
it does. And
it's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn, and it's rich. I don't know.
And it's strange.
Dense. It's dense and it's strange.
Dense,
and it's hard to latch onto. It's a story structure.
Again,
that's
the surrealism of it. There's all these weird things that it's like it just wouldn't happen by accident, right? Like the placement of Christmas trees was really getting into my head.
Yeah. In
this viewing, I'm just like, there's a Christmas tree with the same kind of lights on it in every single dwelling we enter.
Like that. There's this one shot in when Bill is in his office after it's like closed basically, and you're just in the office, and the lights are down, but it's just the Christmas tree in the corner. And it feels so strange.
See, those are the things that I like. I want to see those things, and of course I can't, and because it's so dense. My first time through, I'm just noticing just the surface level stuff. So I feel like I almost can't say anything about the movie yet. You know,
that's too bad.
Yeah,
it got so in my head that one of the last scenes of the movie, when he's back, it's the last scene that takes place in their home. He walks over and turns off the lights of the Christmas tree. And it's the only time in the whole movie where you see a non-illuminated Christmas tree. And he turns it off, and I was just like, what does that mean? Oh, this is like the bookend, like something just happened. Like, oh, the lights are off now. Like, it was like, whoa.
I saw something pretty amazing analytically about this film. A lot of people like to really, like, dive into, like, the super, like, what's the word, like, analyze every single frame, you know, of a movie. And really try to hit home on about what certain shots meant and objects meant and stuff. And there was this really interesting thing that I felt like was along that kind of route where they went a little too far in, where the placement of the mask on the pillow at the very end of the movie, that it was done kind of by the editor. Like the editor placed the mask on the pillow, and I thought that was so neat. But the scene in the film is where it's a couple scenes actually, but we see, it's funny because I remember the shot as a Christmas tree, but we see him return from the place with his whole thing inside of a bag, you know, along with the mask and everything, and he goes down to his table, opens, or a nightstand or whatever it is, opens one of the doors and then shoves the bag inside, and then puts something in front of it, and then closes the door, and then from there there's a dissolve into the bedroom, and where he is shoving the mask into is overlaid on top of his pillow.
Oh, interesting.
On there. And then the next scene is he walks around to the other side of the bed, when his side is empty, and he gets in on the other side of the bed.
Yeah, I did notice that and thought that was odd.
Yeah. And so it's as if he put the mask there himself symbolically, and I thought that was a really, really cool thing. If it was intended, I don't think it was.
I've never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's just so neat though. I thought that was really cool.
I love that
reading. Yeah,
I think that's awesome. Yeah, I always liked the parallel between how Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman like behave with each other through the film, where it's like she's more or less like emotionally hurting him through her dreams and through things that aren't real, and he's doing the same thing to her with things that are real.
And they full on call it out. They actually say those words.
Which is crazy at that. And I love that parallel, and like that monologue she gives when they smoke weed, and holy crap,
so bad.
That's like deeply disturbing.
It wasn't until that scene that I was like, because like I was like with it, okay, that's fine, and then that scene happened, and I was like, whoa.
I was wondering how you would have thought of the beginning.
The beginning's the beginning feels so average. You know what's weird is that the movie, like both of you said, that it feels surreal, right? This
Yeah.
whole movie feels surreal, and it does to me too, where their acting seems wooden to me.
Yep.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems
And the writing of the
Yeah.
dialogue, it feels like
a little bit. Yeah.
play,
But also
like a play
at
almost.
Yeah.
times. Not all the time. When we get into
Right.
those super intense monologues,
Yeah.
like it's not wooden.
It's not
at
wooden
all.
anymore, and that's what's interesting.
Yeah.
Was like I noticed that the other
Yeah,
characters.
it's
in the
not
movie-
accidental.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's other characters in the movie that give just full on, crazy good performances of just like the one girl that the first patient that he goes to see. And
Yeah.
she says that I love you.
Yeah, that was
like-
really.
Yeah.
And Ziegler, the rich dude.
Yeah.
He never feels like he's in the dream world.
No,
he feels like he's
yeah,
real.
He
Yeah.
feels real. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, because of that contrast, they're not badly acting. It's like it's a decision to make them act that way.
Yeah.
And so it's like it makes it feel surreal, like you said, because it feels like they're fake people in a real world, which is really strange.
Yeah, and then like the location of the party at the beginning, that feels like any real world. That's a real world location. Like I feel like we're grounded in reality here.
Yeah.
A very rich reality, but reality still.
Yeah.
But then when we get to their home, it's like I feel like they purposely tried to make it feel like they're on a set almost. The set dressing outside of their windows was so clearly a television show backdrop of fake cityscape.
Oh, I
And
didn't
the
even notice
lights
that.
coming through the windows were like over the
yeah.
top blue and purple.
Experimental.
Like
Yeah.
like it was bonkers looking. Like if you did that
Oh, yeah.
on accident
Yeah, yeah.
while dressing a film set, you'd be fired.
Right.
Because they were like, that just looks ridiculous,
Yeah.
cheesy,
Yeah.
But it just made him like, where are we? Is this real?
Yeah, I noticed that when she started having her more aggressive kind of outburst just before the monologue, that she was standing in front of the bathroom and it was super blue behind her.
Yeah.
Like
I'm like, that's not moonlight.
that's not moonlight. Yeah.
There's nothing that creates that kind of light.
Right.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and like they have night scenes here that have moonlight in them.
That are
Yeah,
probably
so
done.
see,
It's,
that just-
it's a directorial decision.
Yeah, that just makes me want to dive in more and watch it some more.
Yeah, it's like Kubrick. Like he has so much experience that this is his last movie. He died 4 days after he showed
them the film.
final cut of the
So I've
movie.
heard,
Yeah. Somewhat final cut of the movie.
Yeah.
I wish we had.
But I mean, he had so much experience. It's like
Well,
he's not gonna.
I wish we had
accidentally-
hours of him talking about this movie.
I know.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
Because he had this concept in his head. He's been wanting to adapt this story for years and years.
Yeah.
And his original idea was for it to be a comedy.
That's interesting.
And there was a point where he switched gears and said, no, we're going to make it a drama. And when you look at what you end up with, it's something that's so cerebral and thought out and full of intent.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of it being anything else.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I think about, like, I thought about the connection between him adapting a novel and other people adapting that kind of stuff. Like this is meant to be a romantic novel, right? That's drama.
It's based on a movie called Dream Story,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
Its translation is Dream Story.
Correct. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like it's not in English.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's not in English.
Is it a short?
I think it's a full novel.
A movie or a book?
It's a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But his I just thought it was interesting because I'm thinking about other people who have taken just ideas of romantic novels and just went with it like what's the Dr. Gray 50 Shades of Grey?
50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Like 50 Shades of Grey is like
I did not expect that to come up.
No, I actually thought about that specifically because he's a doctor and he's caught up in the sexual world. That's what
Weird.
50 Shades of Grey is.
He's not a doctor in 50 Shades.
He's not
Yes,
a doctor?
I did read 50 Shades of Grey. I did just out myself.
Very nice. He's not a doctor?
Oops.
No, I'm serious. Is he not?
No, he's not a doctor.
But,
He's,
but
he's
is
like
it-
the CEO of a research and development company. He's a very wealthy, powerful man.
Was there not a trailer where someone said doctor?
In the movie, maybe. I'm
Okay.
saying in the book, that's what he is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just thought it was interesting because those two.
I didn't like it.
Those two cannot be more dissimilar in their adaptation, right?
Yeah.
Like they both focus on someone who's doing what's the word, sexual deviancy, right, within a world, right? They have one that's like a secret cult and another one that's what is 50 Shades of Grey? It's about
Well, you
I don't know.
dominatrix. You
Yeah,
call
so
it.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point being that one of them is very surface
S&M,
level.
that's what it's called.
S&M, yeah. One of them is very surface level. The other one is very, very dense.
Yeah,
And
incredibly deep.
Incredibly deep, and it's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Well,
to
it's
see
more
that kind of take.
psychological
Yeah.
than sexual.
I was gonna
right?
say, like, that's when people. I'll let you go.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that the hype and the talk around this movie is about extreme sexuality.
Yeah.
To the point where I first saw it, I was almost like, well, that actually wasn't as grotesquely sexual as people made it out to be. What we're really talking about is a guy. We have this guy who always felt like he was doing the right thing, even if it was in conflict with what was going on inside of him. And basically, when he hears what he hears from his wife, he's like, "That's my permission to go and just
Have next
if
step of
she's gone
crisis."
there, I'm going to go there too." And he fails like 4 times at basically trying to cheat on his wife.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, this is an inside the head game.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is psychology more than anything. It's not about sexuality.
Deep introspection, because it's not just is it about sexuality, but it's also about like relationships and infidelity and like the line between that, like, can you cheat on somebody in a dream for real? Like, and if it has the same emotional effect on him, like, what does that mean? You
Yeah.
know? Like, that's really interesting to me.
Can I bring up my one qualm with the whole movie?
Sure.
I don't like the final line of the movie.
Oh yeah.
It really bugged me and felt cheap for 2 reasons. One, it seemed to suggest that the only reason they're having the issues they have is because they don't have sex enough.
I felt like it was more of an apology thing. I think it's like more of like we need to get through our issues. We're now on the same page, and
All right,
so we
well,
need to reconcile.
My second reason is potentially more grotesque, and I hope it's not. I hope it's not true, but it almost felt like a self-aware wink to the audience, because there was all this hype about, the rumors were that here he had made this movie that is filled with so much sexuality. They had to do all these recuts to get it rated R.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise
and
and
it's
Nicole
starring
Kidman
Tom
are
Cruise and
married.
Nicole Kidman, who are married. So obviously we're going to see them banging like crazy, which doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They're at odds. They're separate for the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so it felt like, oh, you came to see the 2 most beautiful people in Hollywood have sex in a movie, and you didn't. And so right at the movie ends, we're going to say, now we're going to go have sex.
Uh-huh.
That's what that line felt like to me. And I'm like, oh, we just jumped out of the movie. We just jumped into some weird romantic comedy at the end.
I want to address that.
I
So
didn't feel it.
That bugged me.
you said that the movie's less about sexuality and more about psychological, not torture, but I guess, I don't know, psychological thriller.
It felt more
Psychological
Shakespeare
drama,
to
I
me, like Othello. Othello's just like full of sex, but at the same time, it's about envy. It's about jealousy.
So this is just a surface level interpretation, so I can't really, say that this is, because I wish I could think about this more. But what I got from my first viewing was that there's a ton of sexual frustration throughout the entire movie, and it seems like that's almost a running theme throughout the actions that the doctor takes. I forgot the dude's name. Tom Cruise's character, Bill. That Bill takes throughout the whole thing, right? He
Harford.
keeps, like, he's for some reason like attractive to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And I kind of thought it's funny because I kind of connected that with the real world a little bit, where I'm thinking, oh, Tom Cruise is like this actor who's known for his looks. It'd be funny to have like a movie that's he can't be not attractive.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that every single girl that he talks to almost is having this connection with him, almost more than sexual. It's just like this thing that's like, I really want you right now.
Yeah.
And so because it's that throughout the entire thing, I feel like it was cool for Nicole Kidman's character at the end to say, let's fuck, to be like, oh, okay, now she, like you said before, it's like she's answering his problem now. Now she's answering the sexual frustration, and their marriage is on their way to fixing itself.
Yeah. It's reconciliation.
Reconciliation is what it felt like to me. Yeah.
That's cool. Felt very cheap to me. Felt very cheap.
It was very inexpensive.
I can tell you this much, that if the whole movie was very broad psychological drama, that line doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
I can understand.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel like they had shown us anything to say they were on a path to reconciliation. He had just told her, and she looked upset. And
I don't think they were on a path. I think that I think that whole last scene was her basically giving up. You know, I mean it
was her accepting the situation and moving on, but not committing. She wanted to make it a better situation.
She wanted to make it better and just continue.
Yeah, but not. She didn't. Like, they're gonna get divorced.
You know, the whole scene of them at the mall or shopping for toys at the very end, just it felt like it didn't do anything. It was just a little unnecessary.
I love that. I
didn't like it at all.
To me, it felt like the last scene in Gone Girl. You know, in Gone Girl, where we have two characters who are completely at odds throughout the entire movie, and at the end they're forced to be back together. That it doesn't make any sense, and then they're about to go out to this party and act like a married couple again, but they both hate each other. But it doesn't matter because that's just what's going to happen. So I really liked that, because that's what it felt like at the end of this movie. Is even though they have reconciliation, like a line that says we're going to be reconciled, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you said, I feel like they're going to get divorced, sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that it was a bleak kind of drop off there.
Yeah, but pretty good for a movie to have just one issue.
That's my only issue. Honestly, I feel like it's a perfect film.
Aside from that, yeah.
And I can live with that flaw totally. Yeah. This is a masterpiece of a movie.
It's nice that at least where you have an issue is at the very end.
Yes.
So it's like the last thing. It's like, all right, don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Nicole Kidman's character is really hard to identify with, like, or root for me.
Yeah.
In this movie, I found her just so frustrating.
Yeah.
I think she was amazing. Her performance. And so I think at that end, I was hoping for something either to push that a little farther or to pull it back, completely.
Yeah, and it kind of just stayed in the middle. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. I never rooted for either of them too much, because it feels like the characters, especially the main characters in this movie, particularly Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, serve a different kind of function than characters normally do in movies. Like, it's almost not even about their character. Like, they could more. It's like their themes in personified.
Yeah.
More or less. It's like these characters exist
to
explore themes more than they are like a character study.
Yeah.
About like what makes this person tick.
I was thinking about that about a third of the way into the movie. I'm like, they're not really developing them as characters the way he has in some of his other movies.
Yeah.
Like, they're really kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah. To serve a completely different function.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating. Like, I haven't seen that done very often.
It'll be interesting to see, for me, going forward into this Kubrick study that we're doing, because I'm seeing a similarity between the films that I've seen of his so far, and if there is a similarity in the way that I'm thinking, then this movie is a lot less interesting in that way.
Oh?
Yeah, because I'm seeing like similarities in the way he directs. I'm seeing more of his fingerprint on these.
Well, if we talk about Kubrick's collection in total, I have a different interpretation of this movie than I do as a standalone film. I really look at this film as a masterpiece, but when I say let's talk about Stanley's filmography, this one to me is really an outlier. It is a strange movie compared to the rest of his films.
But the reason why I even bring up that whole fingerprint thing is because I'm feeling a lot of similarities between this and The Shining, like quite a bit.
The way music is used reminded me of The Shining.
I mean the acting. I mean the way he directs people and the camera and the action that's happening. Like he's so specific. If we think about The Shining, just really quick, the way he makes images are very what's the word? Very intended. Very what do you call that? It's intended.
On purpose.
It's very on purpose.
You're like saying what you want to say, but you're like, what do I mean? And you're saying what you want to say.
Are you talking about me right now, or are you talking about the film?
Do you mean it's too on the nose? Or?
No. I mean, it's less intuitive, more, I feel like, maybe not designed. I don't know. Anyway, it's very intended. All of his shots feel
definitely
intended.
extreme and extreme. I mean, he's famously perfectionist, right?
Well, and
of course.
That's exactly what I mean. So like when he was doing stuff in The Shining, he was doing it for the purpose of making things feel uneasy, right? So to where we get these kind of things where people feel a little bit wooden when they're acting, but it's for a purpose, right? And then we have the same thing happening in this film, where to me that feels like a similarity.
It's one technique that he's using again. I don't see a problem with that.
No, it feels like a fingerprint to me. So it feels
What's wrong
like
with fingerprints?
there's nothing. God, hold up.
Are you critiquing or what? It's what it sounds like.
I have fingerprints, 10.
So the idea is that if there's a similarity between those two, if what I'm talking about is real, is that it's happening, then the fingerprint of his ability to tell people what to do and where their acting starts getting wooden a little bit, that's him. That's not a theme. You know what I mean? That's not a theme speaking to this movie. This movie felt surreal because of him at that point. It feels surreal just because he's a director who has surreal fingerprints at that point.
It's his most surreal. To me, Eyes Wide Shut is him, like, it's almost like him letting his hair down a little bit, is what I feel like with Eyes Wide Shut. I feel like he was like kind of like being a little bit more experimental than a lot of his some of his other movies. I don't know if I fully understand what you're saying exactly though.
There's a difference I'm saying between theme of a movie and fingerprint of a director. Yeah. The same thing can go for other directors, like Denis when he did Prisoners. You know, Prisoners feels like a very slow-moving movie because there's such deep symbolism in that movie. There's so many shots that mean a myriad of things. But then you see that Denis is doing the same thing in all of his other work, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I guess in this film it meant that, but what does it mean in the other films? Maybe that's just his fingerprint. Maybe I'm just reading into his fingerprint differently depending on which film I'm seeing. So
he's going to have an arsenal of techniques that he's going to use for different purposes for all of his movies. And there are unique techniques to him. It's his style.
To him, but not to the movie is what I mean.
Well, he uses his style differently for each movie.
As interpreted by the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it will always be interpreted by the viewer. I understand that. It's interesting to see someone to have a fingerprint such as Kubrick and have so many people interpret it in so many different ways when it's the same fingerprint. And I don't know if it is because I haven't seen all of his other movies. I just feel like it's a thing that's happened several times before with other people.
It's more common. What you're describing specifically with the wooden acting is more something post Shining. It's his last 3 movies that
Shining,
really have that.
I feel like Shining
and 2001 also a little bit.
Yeah, and 2001 is what I mean. So that's again.
So it's like 4 movies.
Because I haven't seen his other movies, right?
4 of 10 or so.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, it may not be valid.
And he genre hops too. He never dabbled in the same genre except for war. War is the only genre he returned to multiple times.
Yeah.
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 And he was not afraid to do dark comedy. He was not afraid to do big blockbuster Spartacus. He was not afraid to do insane sci-fi, totally different. He wasn't afraid to do horror or go super surreal and drama. He was all over the place.
Yeah, for me, I always, to kind of put on your hat here, I definitely felt a style and a language that I defined as Kubrick.
Yeah. That
I felt like almost vanished when I saw Eyes Wide Shut.
That's funny.
That's how I felt.
That's funny.
It feels like the most different out of his collection of, not counting the older stuff where I think he was more of a,
like Dr. Strangelove is way different.
I mean, some of the older stuff, he's a company man, more or less, hired director.
Spartacus.
I'd say more of his auteur work. Eyes Wide Shut definitely is a bit of it's a departure.
That's what I mean when I
don't interpret things as visually as you do, though.
Like when I feel like he's letting his hair down a little more because he's doing more experimental things. I feel like he wouldn't have had either the guts or the note, or just he had done so much and accomplished so much with filmmaking at that point.
Yeah.
It's like, what more can you do at that point? So it's like you get kind of weird and you get a little experimental. You start doing things differently. You shoot rear project, someone walking on a treadmill, rear projection down New York.
Sure.
Instead,
I liked there was this guy that did a YouTube channel that was talking about if certain movies were directed by other people, right? So if you had like if 2001: Space Odyssey was directed by who's the guy? Mayhem guy.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay, thank you. Yeah, so like if 2001: Space Odyssey was directed by Michael Bay, like it's no longer the same movie, right? It's just a completely different thing. So I can understand how a director could put their fingerprint on a thing and just turn it into completely something else. That's the reason why all of David Fincher's stuff feels dark, because David Fincher's fingerprint is a dark thing. It just, all of his stuff feels dark and mysterious. And so it could be that what I'm feeling with this movie could be just Kubrick's like surrealist, more like weird feeling kind of way of fingerprint putting on different movies. And maybe I want to judge the movie by itself, thinking that this theme connects only to this movie and nothing else, but not to the director. But I think it's both. I
think where we might be at odds or splitting hairs potentially are you suggesting that a director's fingerprint is something that's inevitable? They're going to leave it on every movie. They can't alter it because it's their fingerprint, like a real fingerprint is. It's just going to always be there because that's who they are.
That's not what I'm implying, but I'm guessing there's something to that, I guess.
Because I would say that there's also the potentiality that a director could be aware of what their fingerprint is.
Sure.
And therefore control aspects of it.
Yeah.
And say, I'm going to lean into this for this more surreal movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to back it out for this grounded in reality movie.
That's a really good definition. See, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So I don't think, and that's what I mean by, I've only seen the more surreal parts of Kubrick, so I may not be able to understand his control yet. So that I think that's a great explanation.
Shining is I guess you could say is the next most surreal, but that's more because of the genre.
Yes.
Because it's horror based, supernatural.
But I mean, like for example, like the shots that he uses where he has a shot where we're focusing on the little boy, right? When he's I don't remember, when he's seeing something, I can't remember exactly, but there's a shot that just slowly zooms in on him the whole time, and then there's the shot where we're following from behind him as he's rolling down the iconic shot of him rolling down the hallway, people coming down staircases, and the slow jib shot. Like it all feels the same. It feels like the same kind of stuff that I see in here, because it's the same kind of floaty shots that they're framed differently, but it's the same kind of translation where we have the camera is coming from here, and we're gonna move it over here,
right?
And we're gonna float back this way. It feels him,
right?
I've seen it before. I've seen it done before. That's it.
But why does that matter?
Why does we already talked about that? I don't need to defend it anymore, because what you said I thought made perfect sense.
Okay. I was just trying. Okay. Good.
This movie holds the record for longest narrative film shoot ever, at over 300 days of principal photography.
They did some crazy things.
They did insane things. The whole movie was shot mostly in England.
Yeah.
Including the
New
York street stuff. They built a square block of New York in a soundstage. Yeah. Which you can tell when you can kind of tell.
I think it's kind of strange, Kubrick's way of like molding people and directing people to do several takes until they break down. And what there was an article written about this, about how he was telling Cruise and Kidman to keep doing take after take after take. One of the longest ones was 50 takes on that particular set. The article described it as Kubrick saying, I need you to do it over and over and over again, so that the actors then disconnect their lines from what's happening, right? It's no longer just lines on a paper. Now they're living it, and now they have to figure out different ways to approach the situation. It's no longer just, okay, how can I deliver the line better to more appease him? It's more just, okay, I got to get this out of the way, so let's just feel it and let's just do it. And that's what he's
Kubrick was a pretty crazy director, like in terms of like how he directed his actors.
Yeah.
He would like literally sit behind the camera and he would give direction like this. He would go, "That's shit. Do it again." He would like literally say like as simple as that. He's like, "It's still bad. Still not very good." He's like, "That's all you got?" He'd like peg him on and stuff, but he wouldn't tell him what he wanted.
Yeah.
He would just have him do it over and over and over again until they like either did something really crazy or special or something clicked. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting. His process of filmmaking is like just fascinating to me. Why he chose to build New York as opposed to going to it, not because it was more realistic or anything like that. He was okay with losing a little bit of that realism for the benefit of being able to occupy that soundstage for as long as he ever needed. Just infinite, no logistics of traffic, no blocking off roads. He can just spend days and days and days in a soundstage, getting it exactly how he wanted to.
Right.
And so he would just take his time and do it. And he run with small crews. Like the most people on his sets were mostly extras. Was the majority of people on set.
So there's that side of him, right? And then there's the side of him that chose the particular film stock for this movie based on the best discount he could get.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I'll do whatever it takes to get my creative space that I want to work the way I want to work, but I'm also going to try to save money on the film stock and get the cheapest film stock available.
The film stock they chose for Eyes Wide Shut was discontinued by Kodak, and Kodak made a special deal to bring that film stock back for Eyes Wide Shut specifically.
That sounds more expensive.
Yeah, because Kubrick...
I'd heard he chose a film stock to save money.
That's not what I heard, yeah. I heard he wanted a specific film stock that wasn't even available anymore.
Well, that sounds more like an auteur.
Yeah. To craft his look, yeah.
That's interesting.
Maybe that was a different movie.
I don't know. I had a moment. I felt really excited because I spotted a thing in this movie that I didn't know was there.
What was that?
Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, yeah.
He pulls a whole Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Where was that? He's sitting in a booth in the jazz lounge place where Tom Cruise meets with the piano player guy.
Sure. Yeah.
He's just sitting there looking all scraggly and bearded and...
That's funny. That's funny.
like there's a million extras that you could have put in that spot that would have not distracted your eye, but Stanley Kubrick looks crazy. And you're like, wait, what is that?
And it's funny is I've never noticed.
Yeah,
I've seen Eyes Wide Shut maybe 20 times.
First time I saw Eyes Wide Shut, I didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah. Damn, what can we say about Eyes Wide Shut? Oh, Eyes Wide Shut has some of my favorite editing in a movie also. And actually my favorite sequence probably in any movie ever is in Eyes Wide Shut. I brought it to my screenwriting class. I took a screenwriting class, and one of our assignments was we each had to bring in a scene that was they said the most emotionally impactful scene in a movie, the most emotionally like resonant scene in a movie. So I brought in the scene where Tom Cruise is in the mansion already, and that dude comes up to him and he's like, your taxi wants to talk to you. And then they bring him in and then reveal and just expose him. Like, you are caught. You are where that you're not supposed to be.
Intense.
Yeah, so intense. And then so like we get that like that one shot where he's walking through the hall and all those people are slow dancing, and that one, I don't know the name of the song, but it's a familiar song, is playing like an orchestral version of it. It's like a Frank Sinatra song or something. And then it drops out and we go into the room and we see Tom Cruise. We don't see what Tom Cruise is looking at. We just see him. Yeah, we see like the mask and stuff. And before we cut away, the piano comes in. The piano goes, do, 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 do. And then we cut and they're all staring at him.
Yeah.
And then from there, we do this crazy sequence of cuts that I always kind of like to call it like a Kubrick cut, a Kubrick sequence, because he does these, that's another fingerprint thing. He does this string of like disembodied cuts in other movies where we get shot of mask staring,
I love
mask staring. Yeah. And then we move on with a scene.
Yeah.
That just like hits me so hard, like every time. Yeah.
It does. It was super intense. It also was very familiar to me and made me wonder as to how much the American Zoetrope bunch mingled with Kubrick, and how much they influenced each other. And I know Steven Spielberg and him were close.
They were very close.
But in terms of Coppola and Lucas, because that scene, and THX came long before.
Yeah.
There's a scene in THX which is almost cut exactly like that.
Yeah.
Where Robert Duvall's character basically does this thing like he feels like he's being watched, and he looks at a security camera, and then we cut to this room where there's all these faces looking directly back at the camera, and then it's cut of close-ups of each of the people looking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It felt very
Similar to that.
Yeah.
It's very Lucas.
It's intense.
Yeah.
It's an intense moment.
Yeah, that is intense.
He lifted it from George Lucas.
Probably.
He's not the brilliant man you think he is.
I know Kubrick was never afraid to take influence from people, and he was always like he says, there's this great story where David Lynch was he was talking to somebody, and he was saying how Kubrick invited him to come to dinner at his house, not Lynch, but somebody else that Lynch knew, and watch Kubrick's favorite movie, and he took him up and screened Eraserhead for him. So it's like Kubrick was really into like some crazy movies, and like he took influence from that. I mean, like, so I don't know, I thought that was funny.
All right, important question. Is the piano player alive?
No.
You say, "All right, he's dead."
That was just a gun instinct. I've actually never even thought about it. No.
Did you just take it at face value when he said he's back in Seattle, or
kinda? Yeah, actually, yeah, I do take it at face value. I think Ziegler is right.
You think he's genuine?
I think he's completely genuine. Yeah. I think it literally is just like a sex cult. I don't think there's actual violence or anything happening there.
That's the way I read it, but like so much of the movie is so surreal that it feels like should be other things going on. So it feels like if that's true, if Ziegler is just running a sex cult and they actually had no danger involved whatsoever, and it was just like that girl just OD'd just because she OD'd,
right?
Then it feels like all the surreal stuff that was going on didn't really mean anything.
Well, it just means,
which I kind of like.
It means that this is more about paranoia than it is about reality.
Which I get.
Correct.
I get total
Completely
paranoia
agree.
vibes from the whole time that we're following Cruise's character throughout the whole thing.
Especially post the sex cult.
Yeah. And even the times where he's even the times where it's before the sex cult, you know, when he's just like talking with people, like when he's with that first client that's just throwing herself at him in the same room with her dead father.
Yeah.
Like he feels so awkward there, and he feels so.
I thought that scene was brilliantly directed.
So I did too. Yeah, it feels, everything in this movie feels so great. It feels real, like every scene has an arc to it. Yeah, you know, and I love that so much. But the whole feeling that it evokes is that paranoia feeling, and I really like that.
Yeah, I do too.
Can I say something about that scene?
Yeah.
That I picked up on this time was that her performance, all the way up to the reveal that when she kisses him, right, seemed a little weird. Yeah. It just seemed off. Yeah. And I was like, man, this movie is chock full of awesome performances. Unfortunately, she's not one of them, right? Because I'm like, the way she's acting around Tom Cruise's character right now isn't normal. Yeah. It's like she's faking something. She's hiding something. And of course she was, you know, and as soon as she switches and she was like, I'm obsessed with you, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually the best performance yet.
I had the same thought when she was acting that way. I was like
you don't look
strange.
Like you're in grief.
Right.
You got something else going on.
So that was also the weird thing about the wooden acting thing that I bring up, is the only time that I felt like there was actually wooden acting was just before they were smoking pot, right? Just before they were doing that, or as they were smoking, I guess, is where all of Tom Cruise's lines felt like they were supposed to be deliveries for a play, like you said.
Yeah.
Where where like he's aware of the audience and he's giving the line, but he's not speaking to her. It's like he's just speaking.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's just what Kubrick wanted at that moment.
Yeah.
But then there's times right after that where it feels like they stuck with the first take or the second take, where Cruise is fully emotional and inside the moment and just speeds along on his line, like it was just right there, just do it.
I felt like what we're describing as wooden performance was about showing these two characters as a type. They're saying like here is Mr. and Mrs. America, A and B. I wouldn't
This is
the
that,
guy
no.
who says, "Darling, we're running late. Kiss the kid and say goodbye to the babysitter."
Oh,
it's so good to meet you, Mr. So and so at
generic.
the party.
Yeah.
I felt like they were trying to push this. It's almost like here's the facade of the generic have everything American success story,
not being genuine,
and then we're going to look on the inside and show things aren't all perfect.
That makes that makes more sense, and I think on more viewings I would see that.
Yeah,
that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. Kubrick I just learned about this about Kubrick, is he had a technique for crafting his stories and for writing he obviously adapted everything, but like for how he actually turned his adaptations into movies. And he had this thing called I don't remember exactly what it's called. It was a something unit, a non-submersible unit or something crazy like that. And it was basically, the idea was every single scene in the movie should serve a purpose deliberately, should move the story forward, which is a pretty basic filmmaking rule, is every scene should move the story together. But the way he would talk about it is like these scenes almost like independent short films, and he would say you only need about 6 or 7 non-submersible units to have a great film, like good scenes, good little set pieces, good sequences that say something. And I always felt that from Kubrick movies, and I think that's what the structure that gets me about Eyes Wide Shut is like. It doesn't feel like Act 1, 2, and 3. It feels like every scene has like an idea behind it that's pushing forward, that it's elaborating on. Every scene elaborates on a new kind of context for the themes of the film and a new way of pontificating on these themes and evolving on it. And I thought that was just kind of a really interesting way to approach filmmaking, because it feels really, really unique to cinema. You get that 3-act structure from plays and stuff like that, and we don't necessarily have to follow that. It's good, it works for movies, but I think it's really awesome and reaching into new potentials of like how cinema can be structured by viewing it as these, basically each scene being a sentence almost, if you want to think of it that way, in a book, where it's just kind of moving it along rather than building up to a particular hero's journey point or thing like that. Yeah, which I found really fascinating. And you don't get scenes that kind of repeat, and it's just always progressing. It's always moving forward rather than following a mirror or kind of a like more
template.
More template. Driven. And so it makes like every scene, it's like unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get next, and I love that.
That's true.
Yeah.
I really like so far. I mean, everything that I've seen of Kubrick, the way he stitches things together is really interesting, because I don't ever feel the structure in a Kubrick film, and I think that's awesome.
I think that's awesome.
I remember feeling that way when I saw Full Metal Jacket for the first time, being like, this is weird.
Yeah, it's just unlike anything.
Yeah. Like you get to point, you're like, okay, I'm following this character. This is what the movie's about, and then no, it's not. It was about the other guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's more about an idea. It's more about pontificating and expressing themes through cinema, I feel like.
Yeah.
Being provocative and stirring up conversation and being impactful, emotionally resonant.
How does he do all that?
I don't know. He's been making movies a long time. He's
You
pretty good
definitely
at it.
feel his confidence in this movie.
Yeah.
That is like just a confident filmmaker. I loved the setup. It really gets me every time we watch, the very wooden sequence of the setting up of these two characters that seem to have a perfect life, and then what they start unraveling his wife, Nicole Kidman's character, first, as she begins to flirt back with this man, and you're like, what is she doing, right? Like, she has it all. They seem so happy together. What's going on here? And then you see him kind of flirting with these other girls, and you're like, this isn't what I thought it was at all, And it just throws me for a loop every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's like, what is the story here? Like, you never grasp onto like the story unfolding. You just follow these string of events as
also
they're happening,
from the first act, just from like the sheer amount of lines given to Nicole Kidman, it feels like it's her story.
Yeah.
And we completely shift.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does shift. I think part of where that comes from too is Kubrick's idea of cinema and movies should flow more like music than anything, as a string of emotion and tone over time, and have that emotion like kind of flow. What's interesting about Kubrick, and I think what makes him so great, is he has all that, but he also has substance. And it's not just style. It's not just mood. It's actually like deep. He was a very intellectual guy. Like, he loved reading, and he loved talking deep about, like, warfare was like fascinating to him. That's why he revisited it over and over again. So I always liked that. That's why he's my favorite director. Oh,
it's weird. I feel like David Lynch and what's his name, Stanley Kubrick, are almost at odds.
David Lynch is much less intellectual, much less. He is almost entirely intuitive. He is full mood, full substance.
Well, that's what I mean.
Style.
Full style is. I feel like he's full style while Kubrick's full substance.
Yeah.
And
I think Kubrick has both.
I've never felt expressionist from Kubrick. I've always felt like everything that he did was intended to be this way and never a different way. That some people will film a scene and be like, oh wow, that was serendipitously amazing, right? Let's just keep it. Where I don't feel like Kubrick was ever that way. Where I feel like he would film a scene and then be like, okay, well that's not what I wanted. Let's do it again, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
His tyranny model is a little bit overhyped, and he actually, from what I'm aware of, he kind of allowed that image to persist a little bit because it allowed him privacy. It allowed people to be occupied with this idea, and he was able to just be himself and whatever.
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with intuition,
and it does have a seed of truth too, because like he was crazy too.
Well, I'm sure. Well, what they said about him was untrue, but it's actually true.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is there is a lot of improv stuff. There's more improv in Kubrick's filmography than you'd think.
Well, this is what I mean is by intuition. Like, I feel like he knew what he wanted and would see it play out and be like, if that felt correct, then he would stick to it.
Correct.
And if it didn't feel correct, then he'd do it again. But I feel like that was his thing. But anyway, that's why I feel like he's so, everything that felt so intended. It never felt I don't know, like you said, more stylistic. It never felt stylistic to me.
I think I agree with you, but I think it also felt stylistic. I think it was all intentional and style all in one.
Sure.
I thought it was very funny that he chose to start the movie on a shot of Nicole Kidman on the toilet.
Yeah. Well, the first shot is her nude, taking her dress off.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But then we contrast that
very, very quickly.
Yeah.
She's literally taking a leak on the toilet. We see her wipe herself and everything. And the reason why I think that's so funny is because this film had all this buzz going into it about how controversial, over-the-top sexual this movie is going to be. And if there's one thing that has remained more taboo than sex on screen, it has been using the toilet on screen, especially a woman using a toilet on screen. Used to be an instant censorship in like the 60s and earlier.
You weren't even allowed to show a toilet.
Yeah.
The first toilet flushing was in Psycho.
Yes,
sure.
and he had to fight for it.
Yeah.
To keep it.
Isn't that weird?
That's so stupid.
It is stupid. I'm glad we don't have the code today. That would be ridiculous.
I actually think we should bring the code back.
We should bring the code back.
We need some some foundational principles.
We need to reel in the art. We need to rein in the art.
What kind of pizza is Eyes Wide Shut?
The best pizza of all time.
That's not a question.
It is not the best pizza of all time.
It's the best pizza of all time.
It is not the best pizza of all time.
It's the best pizza of all time.
It's not even the best Kubrick of all time.
It's the best Kubrick of all time.
There are 3 movies by Kubrick that are better than
No, there aren't.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, dude, did you hear? There actually aren't.
Oh, update. This just in. Thank you. Turns out there are.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, what's your source?
Oh, CNN.
Oh, dude, that makes sense then. Okay,
Dude,
you're right.
CNN's,
You're right.
CNN's fake news. Did you hear?
It
Really?
depends who you ask. CNN says it's not.
And the truth of it, the truth. Never mind.
Truth bomb.
Okay, what kind of pizza is Eyes Wide Shut? Eyes Wide Shut is just like the greatest pepperoni pizza ever. The best pepperoni pizza I've had. One of the best pepperoni
I'd get
pizzas
on
I've
board
had.
with you with that. But I'd say it would have to have some kind of unique qualifying factor to it. Like perhaps these are extra spicy
Okay.
pepperoni. Not to the point where it hurts you, but gives you enough of that like discomfort where you're like, this is a unique. I'm not having this anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it has like a really like the sauce has like a super, super rich, deep flavor.
I'm down with that.
And that mixed with cheese that is house made in house.
Has to be.
Yeah. And the
They
highest
actually threw out 50 attempts at making the cheese first before they got it right.
with the best pepperonis imported in the world. Wherever that is, it's imported.
But they're spicy.
Yeah, and they're a little spicy.
Thank you.
They got a little spice to them.
Yeah.
And there's oregano on it, and it's just like you eat it, and you're like, oh my god, there's so much flavor in my mouth, and it feels so good. The mouth feel of this pizza is so
Okay,
good.
I'll tell you what a pizza is.
It is that
I'll tell you
good.
what pizza this is.
What is it?
It's I put on a blindfold and somebody feeds me a pizza. And I'm like, oh, that's and then that's where it ends. That's where the pizza rating ends.
Oh, because they killed you.
Actually, you don't know if they killed me. No, because I've only seen the movie once, so I need to eat the pizza several more times to figure out what's on it.
That's right.
It's hard to put a pizza rating to this film.
Yes, it is.
Because this is just a difficult film to classify, to categorize, and to compare.
Yeah.
It is very, very unique. And I think more than anything else, of all the great pieces of the whole, the thing that makes this movie continually special to me is just its freshness, just its utter freshness. It's like...
Yeah, I've never seen a movie like Eyes Wide Shut.
You're right. Yeah.
I haven't.
Except for the scene he stole from George Lucas.
Lucas,
But other than that, yeah.
Oh.
Kenny, do you have a pizza rating?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
We co-created that pizza.
Co-created pizza.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything silly to say today, but...
you know what? Eyes Wide Shut's not a silly movie.
It's a pizza
so
cult.
it's okay to not...
But I will add this to it.
I wanted to add this.
Oh, fine.
I wanted to add this.
But I have another thing to say.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. Whenever we talk about this movie, you say that it's your favorite movie or has been one of your favorite movies or something like that. And it's hard for me to take that, what you've said, and been like, okay, so where is this placed on my favorite movie scale? Because I can't do it. It's like a movie. It's a really great movie, but it like you said, it doesn't compare to any other movie that I've seen. I can't
that's what gets me about it.
Well, I mean, but
Yeah.
like other Kubrick movies, The Shining, I can't compare to other
No,
movies.
but that's why I've revoked my favorite
yeah.
title, because you could literally like almost every one of Kubrick's movies has been my favorite movie, like at a time.
Now that I can agree with, where Kubrick is such a unique director that all of his movies feel utterly fresh, right? They feel really, really good. All of his more fingerprint movies as opposed to accompaniment movies. But
his first like 3 movies, like The Killing and Killer's Kiss,
the ones that we're gonna go see that we haven't seen yet, at least some of us,
are good movies. Very good movies, actually. But not like the kind of movies where you're like, holy shit, this is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But then he dropped like Dr. Strangelove, and then it was just like masterpiece after masterpiece, just over and over again. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, the fact that we're going backwards in time with a filmmaker, right? So for a lot of filmmakers, they have a peak and then a decline, right?
Sure.
And the fact that we're going backwards in time from Eyes Wide Shut, right? And the next one is Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
And before that is The Shining.
Yeah.
And before that is
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, and
Then
then
2001.
Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
That is bonkers.
It is
right?
bonkers.
It actually, I think it makes a good case for filmmakers maybe slowing down.
Yeah.
And putting more time into the development of their work.
See, that's, I mean, the one thing that Kubrick does that I've never ever had from any other filmmaker yet is just, like you said, a sheer amount of quality, right? Of like you said, we're going backwards and we're hitting all these masterpieces that are just known throughout the world as masterpieces.
Yeah.
Like no other working director right now, even my favorite one, Denis, at the moment, his films are awesome, but none of them I can be like, yeah, these are top, like Polytechnique is not going to be the top quality film that I'm going to be talking about forever. Like, but most of Kubrick's films are, and it's just so strange to see him, one man, have all these just under his belt.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. Blows my mind every time.
How many of the 5 we just did going backwards are on the AFI Top 100?
All of them?
That's what I thought, right?
Yeah, I think all 5. Yeah.
I don't know that Eyes Wide Shut is or not, but I know 2001
Eyes Wide
is.
Shut is. I was
Really?
going to ask about Clockwork Orange.
Oh, wow.
That was the only
Clockwork
one I
Orange
wasn't sure.
Got to be on there.
I assume it is. We'll have to
Double check.
We'll have to fact check that, or we could leave that to
Editor.
Twitter. Hey, Twitter, fact check.
2001 is like number 2 on the AFI or something like that. It's like it's been.
Yeah, it's
2001 has
it's
been,
like the movie that everyone.
It's been known as like the best movie ever
Analyzes.
made. It's like there's like 3 or 4 best movies ever made, and 2001 is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Citizen Kane. Like.
Damn.
Okay. I'll go
Well,
check it.
next time we're talking Full Metal Jacket.
I'm extremely hyped for that.
That's the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I've
remains.
never seen it.
I think I'd say it remains my favorite.
Yeah. There was a good year or 2 where Full Metal Jacket was also my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. Definitely have a lot to say about that one.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
That'll be interesting.
That's my favorite war movie.
Hands down.
Yeah.
It shows war as a bad thing.
Well, currently, I have a favorite war movie.
What's your favorite war movie?
I'm not going to say. Not
1917.
Until
Dunkirk.
Oh yeah,
Dunkirk?
no, 1917. Yeah, that was my favorite war movie. You know why? Because it was so unique. Because it was so unique. You know that. Man, it was so
the
unique.
fake oneer that lasted 2 hours.
the oneer,
the
thing,
oneer.
the one
wait,
shot
I
throughout
remember
the whole thing.
in the 1960s that Alfred Hitchcock did it without digital.
Waffle 1917 sucks.
It doesn't though.
Waffle it does.
It is good though. I'm not cutting to the other guys.
What is your favorite war
'cause they're
movie?
Profane. They're being profane. What's
What
that?
is your favorite war movie?
Currently it's I forgot what it was called. The Spielberg one.
War Horse.
No. Yes, War Horse. That's it. That's the one.
War of the Worlds.
Saving Private Ryan?
Yes, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, okay.
So far, that's my favorite.
I love that movie.
That's a good movie.
That's a brilliant movie.
No one's
Yeah,
gonna
I love
fight
that
with you
movie.
on that.
I know this.
That was my favorite movie
Shut up.
too.
Shut up.
Actually,
every time, every movie
I have
we're
a
gonna
lot
talk
of favorite
about.
movies,
Yeah.
dude.
But you know what wasn't? 1917.
That's true.
Never was one of Taylor's favorite movies.
I already
true.
cut the episode. The episode.
Nor mine, because it was garbage.
It wasn't garbage.
It was
garbage.
Dude, did you know